You've probably heard it before. Maybe you've even believed it. The dual income, no kids couple, the disposable income, the nice apartment, the gay best friend who always seems to have money for brunch and a weekend trip. The assumption sitting underneath most mainstream financial content that queer people don't really need to be a part of this conversation. Or that if they're struggling, it's because of choices, not circumstances. I want to blow that myth up, respectfully, with data. Because here's what's actually true. LGBTQ plus people in America face a measurable, documented, systemic financial disadvantage. And most of us have been navigating it alone, without language for it, without anyone naming it out loud, and often while quietly wondering if we're just bad with money. We aren't, and I have the receipts. When I first found data about the LGBTQ plus wealth gap, two things happened at once. I felt vindicated because I knew it wasn't just me, and I felt furious because none of this was deserved. This combination of vindication and rage is exactly what I want you to feel by the end of watching this video. Not hopeless, not ashamed, validated, informed, and clear on what you can do about it. Let's get into it. First of all, this is not a subtle gap. This is not a rounding error. This is a structural disparity backed by data by some of the most credible research institutions in the United States. According to the Center for American Progress's 2024 LGBTQI+ wage gap report, the average LGBTQ+ household earns just 85 cents for every dollar earned by non-LGBTQ+ households. A difference of about $12,600 per year. That's more than the average American household spends on food and gas in the entire year. Gone. Every year. And that's just the average. When you break it down further, the numbers get harder to sit with. Transgender and non-binary households earn just 70 cents on the dollar compared to non-LGBTQ+ households, a gap of about $24,800 annually, more than the average household spends on rent, food, and gas combined. LGBTQ+ women-headed households face a gap of 52 cents on the dollar, nearly $40,000 per year in lost income. LGBTQ+ households of color lose $22,590 per year compared to non-LGBTQ+ white households, nearly double the gap faced by white LGBTQ+ people. We'll talk more about this in a moment. The income gap is only part of the picture. The other part we need to talk about is wealth. What you own versus what you earn tells an even starker story. LGBTQ+ people own homes at a rate of about 20 percentage points less than their cis-het counterparts, according to the Urban Institute. LGBTQ+ workers have been found to have less access to employer-sponsored retirement and savings plans, such as a 401k. In fact, only 47% of LGBTQ+ adults have a retirement savings option of any kind, compared to 56% of the general population. 51% of LGBTQ+ people have less than $5,000 in savings. 20% have none at all. 72% of LGBTQ+ Americans carry a high level of financial stress, and a third stress about money every single day. Look at those numbers again, and then remember, our community is not struggling because of personal failure. Our community is struggling because the system was not built for us, and in many cases was actively built against us. The queer wealth gap does not have a single cause. It's a cumulative result of many overlapping forces. Income barriers, systemic discrimination, psychological weight, and an information gap. All four are real, all four matter. We'll start with income barriers, including some that you might not see coming. Workplace discrimination against LGBTQ+ people is well documented. In 2024, approximately a quarter of LGBTQ+ people reported experiencing workplace discrimination, compared to 16% of non-LGBTQ+ people. But the income barrier goes deeper than overt discrimination. I lived this in a way that still makes me angry thinking about it. Before I had top surgery and before I was passing consistently, I worked jobs that limited my exposure. Rigging and lighting for a venue, working at Taco Bell, not because those were my only options, but because I couldn't afford to return to a workplace where I would be misgendered every day. I also had back pain partially from binding, which limited my hours. And I genuinely didn't believe anyone would hire me for a better paying job if they knew I was trans. After top surgery, after I grew a beard, and after I was passing consistently, I got a job using my psychology degree that made $9 more than I was making as a manager at Taco Bell. It was a job that I couldn't imagine surviving if my clients knew I was trans. Same skills, same person, different amount of visible transness, different pay. That is not a personal failing, that is a system. For gender non-conforming people, visibly trans people, and non-binary people who don't pass by cis-normative standards. These barriers are often more acute and more constant. Passing privilege is real, and naming it explicitly is a part of doing this work honestly. One of the most significant drivers of the LGBTQ plus wealth gap could be what happens to queer people when they first come out. According to the Clear Leaf survey, 73% of LGBTQ plus people could rely on their family financially before coming out. Only 62% could after. The gap is largest for transgender respondents. Think about what that means in practical terms. The period when most young people are getting their financial footing, being helped with a security deposit, getting their cell phone bill paid for, being caught when a job falls through, is often the same period when LGBTQ plus people are being cut off. We enter adulthood building our financial foundation without the safety net that most of our peers take entirely for granted. Almost half of queer adults are estranged from at least one family member. Nearly half. That's not a personal story, that's a pattern with financial consequences that compound over decades. The part that doesn't show up in the data but shows up every day in my financial coaching work is the belief that financial security isn't for people like us. I carried that belief for years. I worked at Taco Bell making $12 an hour as a manager, not just because of external barriers, but because part of me had internalized the message that that was the ceiling for me, that I wasn't the kind of person that got to have financial stability, that money and investing and wealth building were for someone else. That belief isn't random. It's a response to a world that has consistently communicated to queer and trans people that we are less valuable, less hireable, less deserving. Internalizing that message is not weakness. It's a completely understandable adaptation to a hostile environment, but it is also one of the most significant barriers to financial progress, and it is one that can be challenged and changed. The shame and the belief that your financial situation is tied to your worth is the first thing I address with every client before we touch a budget or open an account. Because if you don't believe that you deserve financial security, you will unconsciously sabotage every strategy you build. The last barrier I'll identify in this video, the information gap. This one is solvable, and it's the reason I do what I do. Queer people were less likely to have grown up in households where investing, wealth building, and financial strategy were discussed. They are more likely to have been cut off from the family knowledge transfer. The here's how to open a Roth IRA conversation. The here's how we bought our first house story. That passes financial literacy from one generation to the next. Most mainstream personal finance content was not created with queer people in mind. It assumes a nuclear family structure. It doesn't address name changes on financial accounts or beneficiary designations without traditional family safety nets, the cost of gender-affirming care, or the particular psychological weight of building wealth without a safety net. Dave Ramsey wasn't talking to you, but I am. The information exists. The tools work for anyone, regardless of identity. The gap is access, and that gap is closable. Let's talk about the DINK myth. DINK stands for dual income, no kids. There's a persistent stereotype that LGBTQ plus people are actually wealthy. The image of the childless dual income gay couple with disposable income and a nice apartment. And look, I want to be honest, that situation exists and it comes with real financial advantages. My partner and I are a dual income household with no children, and that flexibility is a genuine factor in what we've been able to build together. But here's what that image leaves out. A significant portion of the LGBTQ plus community is disabled. According to a 2022 Human Rights Campaign report, 36% of LGBTQ plus adults report having a disability, compared to only 24% of non-LGBTQ plus adults. Research consistently shows that between 30% and 70% of neurodivergent people also identify as LGBTQ plus, with the highest overlap in the autistic community. Many queer and trans people are managing chronic illness, mental health conditions, and physical disabilities that directly impact their earning capacity and their financial stress. Many LGBTQ plus people are single. Many handle their finances completely separate from their partners. Many are supporting chosen family members, contributing to mutual aid, or navigating financial lives that look nothing like the DINK stereotype. The DINK image also tends to center able-bodied, white, cisgendered gay men, which brings us to the part of this conversation we can't skip: intersectionality. This video is focused specifically on the ways that queer identity impact financial outcomes, but it would be incomplete and dishonest not to name this clearly. Race, gender, disability, and education all compound the wealth gap in significant ways. LGBTQ plus households of color lose $22,590 per year compared to non-LGBTQ plus white households, nearly double the gap faced by white LGBTQ plus people. Black LGBTQ adults are among the least likely to earn $10,000 or more. Lesbian households face what researchers have called a double gender pay gap, both partners having been subject to gender-based wage discrimination throughout their careers. These These are not separate issues. These are the same issue operating across different axes simultaneously. To white queer people watching this, the tools in this video work for you, and there's still real and important work to do at the policy level to address the compounding disadvantages faced by queer people of color. Advocate for that. Talk to your representatives. Support organizations doing that work. Our liberation is bound together. To queer people of color watching this, the data names your reality, and it does not define your ceiling. There is no limit to how many of us can change the script. These tools work for anyone. The gap is real, and there are people defying it every day. The income gap is real. Discrimination in hiring and compensation is real. And there are better paying opportunities out there for you. There are free financial strategies and tools that wealthy people have been using for decades that are available to anyone. There is a Roth IRA with your name on it. There is a high yield savings account sitting there earning interest, whether you open it or not. Compound interest does not check your identity before it works for you. You are not waiting for permission. You are not too far behind. You are not too broke to start. Here are 5 things you can do right now to start getting your financial situation to a better place. You don't have to overhaul everything today. Just start with 1. First, you could open a high yield savings account, or HYSA. If your money is sitting in a standard savings account or checking account, earning about 0.01% interest, you are leaving money on the table. HYSAs currently offer 4 to 5% annual percentage yields at many financial institutions. This is the first account I have every client open. SoFi, Ally Bank, Discover, and Marcus by Goldman Sachs are all solid options. It doesn't really matter which one you pick as long as you pick one. The second thing you can start doing is tracking your net worth. You can't change what you can't see. A simple spreadsheet with your assets, all the things you own, and liabilities, what you owe, gives you your starting point. From there, everything becomes a direction. I made a spreadsheet template that I use myself, which you can download on my website for free. The third thing you can do is find out if your employer offers a 401k match. If so, contribute enough to get it. A 401k match is free money. If your employer matches up to 3%, and you're not contributing 3%, you are leaving part of your compensation on the table every pay period. Fourth thing you could do is to open your own Roth IRA. If you have earned income, whether through a traditional employer or if you're self-employed, you can open a Roth IRA. Fidelity and Schwab both offer no minimum accounts. Buy one low-cost index fund, set up a $25 a month automatic contribution, and make sure that your account is set up to automatically buy stocks with the money you're funding the account with. Now you've started investing. That's it. The fifth thing you can do is advocate. Call or email your representatives in support of the Equality Act and LGBTQ+ inclusive workplace protections. It takes 10 minutes. The Human Rights Campaign website has a tool that makes this easy. Policy change is slow, and it's worth pushing for. You deserve someone in your corner. The LGBTQ+ wealth gap is real. It's well documented, and it's not your fault. It is also not the end of your story. Financial stability is freedom. To do the things you love, to travel, to leave a bad job, a bad relationship, a bad state, to build something that lasts. Money changes not just individual lives, but entire communities when it flows towards people who have been systemically excluded from it. That's why I'm building the Queer Money Movement, and why I built the Queer Money Map, my 7-month one-on-one financial coaching program for LGBTQ+ people who are starting from zero or who feel like financial security is for someone else. We build your full financial foundation together. Emergency fund, debt payoff plan, first investments, an automated system around your real life, values, and your energy. You don't have to figure this out alone. You can learn more about the Queer Money Map on my website, and there you can also schedule a free exploration call with me so that we can talk about your specific financial situation and how I can help. If you're not ready for that yet, stick around. Sign up for my email list or subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll have new free resources every week because queer people should have more money. Full stop. Tell me in the comments if you already knew about the queer wealth gap, and let me know what part of personal finance has been hardest for you to navigate. I'm so grateful you made it through this whole video. Until next time, you're doing great, and I love you.